When a man who built his career dismantling the Russian opposition suddenly calls for the arrest of his own president, does it signal a hairline fracture in the Kremlin's foundation or a sophisticated new layer of political theater? This week, Ilya Remeslo, a 42-year-old operative known for his relentless legal and online crusades against anti-government activists, stunned his 90,000 followers by publishing a manifesto that denounced the current administration as illegitimate and corrupt. The stakes of this defection are immense, as Rameslo was not a peripheral figure. He was a trusted cog in the state's internal security apparatus, a man who built his career on the prosecution of the late Alexei Navalny. This investigation will uncover whether this 180-degree turn represents a genuine collapse of elite cohesion or a dangerous provocation designed to flush out dissenters within the pro-war community. The fundamental shift at play centers on the opening of a dangerous Pandora's box regarding internal criticism. If this trend escalates and more loyalists follow Rameslo's lead, the Kremlin faces a crisis of domestic legitimacy that cannot be solved by simple police action. If it fails or is revealed as a staged operation, it will likely lead to an even more brutal purge of the Z-blogger community, the ultra-nationalist digital wing that has occasionally criticized military tactics, but rarely the president himself. Success for a movement like Rameslo's would mean a total reconfiguration of Russian power dynamics, potentially moving the country toward a post-Putin era, while a failure would cement a totalitarian structure that is increasingly isolated from its own traditional power base. To understand the weight of this development, one must examine the role Rameslo played for over a decade. As a former member of the Public Chamber, a Kremlin-monitored advisory body, he specialized in using the Russian legal system as a weapon. He was a primary architect of the campaigns against the non-systemic opposition, frequently appearing in court to provide testimony that led to the imprisonment of government critics. For years, the Russian political system has relied on a tight-knit circle of operators who handled the grittier aspects of regime maintenance. This power dynamic was built on absolute loyalty in exchange for influence and safety. However, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has strained these alliances. While Western intelligence has long characterized the Russian elite as a monolithic bloc, the reality is a complex web of competing interests currently being tested by economic pressures and military stagnation. Recent developments show that the friction has reached a boiling point. Rameslo's manifesto identifies specific reasons for his break with the administration, primary among them being what he describes as a failing military campaign that has yielded minimal territorial gains at the cost of massive casualties. He argues that the personalized system of power has become alien to the interests of the country, leading to a destroyed economy and the recent unprecedented shutdowns of mobile internet and messaging services like Telegram. These digital blackouts were intended to curb domestic unrest, but they instead signaled a lack of technical and political control. Speaking from his residence in St. Rameslo has gone as far as to suggest that the head of state should face trial as a war criminal, a statement that crosses every established red line in the current Russian legal code, where individuals are routinely jailed for simply using the word war instead of the approved special military operation. The reaction from the Russian security services was immediate. Rameslo reports receiving a barrage of high-pressure calls from contacts within the intelligence community urging him to delete his posts, a sign that the administration may be experiencing a degree of panic. Even longtime targets of Rameslo's legal attacks, such as the exiled allies of the late Alexei Navalny, have expressed a mixture of disbelief and strategic curiosity. While some initially suspected a hack or a Kremlin-sanctioned false flag to identify potential traitors, the sheer severity of the language used, labeling the presidency illegitimate, goes beyond what state political technologists usually permit for staged dissent. This suggests a potential breakdown in the internal discipline that has been the hallmark of the administration since the early 2000s. Consider a scenario where Rameslo's arrest is met with silence from his fellow Z-bloggers. This would indicate that the state still maintains a monopoly on fear, and the incident will be remembered as a solitary moment of personal breakdown or grievance. However, imagine a second scenario where his trial becomes a rallying point for the nationalist right. If the very people who supported the war begin to see the presidency as the primary obstacle to Russian victory or economic survival, the administration could face a mutiny far more sustainable than previous short-lived uprisings. In this outcome, the security services themselves might split along ideological lines, leading to a fractured state capable of deep internal conflict. The geopolitical consequences of an elite split in Moscow would reverberate through every global capital. A weakened or distracted Kremlin could lead to a sudden shift in the front lines in Ukraine, or conversely, a desperate escalation intended to unify the domestic front. The international order, currently braced for a long war of attrition, would have to pivot toward the possibility of a sudden volatile power transition in a nuclear-armed state. Experts are watching for the next move by the Russian judiciary. Whether they proceed with a swift, quiet imprisonment or a high-profile public trial will tell us everything we need to know about the state's level of confidence. Power is often a cycle of absolute control until it reaches a point where the cost of loyalty outweighs the benefits of dissent, and Ilya Remeslo's sudden shift suggests that for some inside the system, that threshold has been crossed. As the digital sphere in Russia continues to grapple with these unprecedented accusations, the focus shifts to whether this is a lone voice in the wilderness or the first crack in a dam that is about to burst. Viewers should watch for the state's official response and whether other high-profile loyalists begin to distance themselves from the administration's core narrative. In a system built on the appearance of total unity, even a single well-placed defector can change the course of history.